What's up, people of the world? Reap the Harvest live. It is Momentum Monday. We'll be discussing conflict and communication. Welcome back. Welcome to the new work week. And we'll be right back after the intro. Beautiful stuff. What's up, Maddie? How are you?
What's up? I'm doing great, man. Doing great.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, why don't you hop into it? You had a little story for the people?
Yeah, my wife actually posted about a little bit about something, and I was just formulating in my mind, and then did a little research, obviously, over the weekend as far as conflict and communication and conflict resolution, right? And thought it was pretty interesting. Actually, I listened to a couple podcasts, one of them being from Doc Rivers, which is the head coach of no, get in here, man. We'll talk about it a little bit more. He's the head coach.
I just like playing with all these fancy tools. You know what I mean?
They're beautiful, man. I love it. I love StreamYard, man. It's amazing.
It's awesome. It's been cool.
Yeah, conflict communication, conflict resolution, and just the way Doc Rivers has handled this through obviously coaching. I don't know if everyone recalls the Donald Sterling when he rolled on to the Clippers, and how he had to handle that, right? That was a friction. He had to take his player's side, which he should, obviously, and how he had to come through that resolution and how they ultimately got through it. And now where we are today, where we really have a lot of conflict, right? A lot of, it's definitely what is the black and white kind of talk that's going on, right? There's no really bipartisanship, and that's political. I say black and white, not just obviously in the racial,
right? The sense that what we're dealing with right now.
But I'm even talking about political, right? It's just, it's black or white. There's no gray area. There's nowhere we can let's meet in the middle on this. This is all that's completely off topic, but something that happened obviously this weekend, and I'll tell you even how it came about. I'm extremely, extremely passionate about sleep. I know it's a little nerdy, but I am so passionate about sleep because I think sleep dictates how you're going to think and how you're going to operate the following day, right? And people tell me all the time, oh, well, some people can operate on less hours of sleep in a given day. And I just don't think that's true. I think that people might operate as far as with the way their brain functions in a given day, or in they only need 4 hours of sleep and they can maintain the level of that brain stamina for maybe a little bit longer period of time. But that's ultimately going to impact some of their decision making, or the way they maybe respond to a child that's just bothering them at a given moment, or the way they respond. I believe it's when you have true sleep and you let your body replenish itself, that you ultimately can make better decisions. So anyways,
I agree with that.
That is just kind of the way I view sleep, right? That everyone needs. I've done a lot of research on it, and the way the body functions and replenishes itself in a given amount of in a night. You need a minimum of really 7.5 hours, but a bare minimum of 7 hours of sleep. I choose to get 8 plus. Typically going to bed at 9 and waking up shortly before 4. I'm sorry, 5. So 4:45 is when I typically wake up. But so I had this argument with my wife, and I just get extremely passionate about stuff, and I get into it, right? And so we just got in this frictional dialogue that was it was tough. I'm like, no, this is the way I believe. This is what I've researched. This is this, and then I had criteria that I was building off of that, right? And then it came to a point where I wasn't willing to take really no for an answer. It was my way. It was that was it. That was And
Oh, I know all
and
about
then
that
I
one.
found myself, and I was cognitively aware, right? I was cognitively aware that I like my mind was headed in a bad direction, right? My mind
Mm.
wanted to go, and because my wife was like opposing me, my mind wanted to go to her inefficiencies, her ineffectiveness, her this, that, and the other, right? I'm like cognitively thinking of like maybe she's not worthy enough in this area, like that just like because the friction or the conflict is happening in one area, that means I got to go to find other things. And I know this isn't just me. And then beyond that, right, earlier in that day, I I typically don't struggle with this really. I have an abundance type mindset where there's enough wealth, there's enough energy, there's enough everything to make the world go round, right? But one of my buddies actually called me up and he's like, dude, I locked down this deal. It's a big deal, and I just got paid on it. I'm like, damn. I was like, that's awesome. But I was like, I wish it was me. And I had this mindset that was like the first like instinct that it like my headspace went to. Like, I wish it was me. Like, what? Like that, those things. And then I had to. So, anyways, like an entire day, I made this psychological shift that number one, like I need to work. Like this is a conscious game, right? Like you have to cognitively be aware that like I was like, dude, why am I just not joyful for him? He locked down an amazing deal. He did this, he did that. Like I should, that's the abundance mentality that, dude, awesome, man. I'm so happy for you. Keep crushing it, dude. Like that type of mentality is that's what's going to make the world go round. That's what's going to push us forward. And then ultimately with my wife, right? I was like, dude, I just need to go run. So I went on like probably a mile run or something like that. So I'm running, and all these things came to me in my run, by the way. So I try to use like the outlet of exercise, health as well, the outlet of exercise really to kind of like come and recalibrate. So I was thinking, I'm like, why am I coming? Why is it coming into my mind where I need to like find other ways where my wife is like inefficient or like, or I wish she did this or I wish she did that? How about I focus on what she does really well at, right? What she provides to our family, how she's a working mother, she's all this, all that. Like, why don't I say? So I started telling myself, and then I started verbally like articulating it, where I said, like, no, this is why she's amazing. So I'm running, kind of like saying stuff out loud, like it's for the very, very granular stuff, right? The woman never lets me, like, when she's making a sandwich and she sees that like I'm around and like it's lunchtime, she's like, hey, can I make you a sandwich? All right, can I get you a salad, babe? Like, I'm like, babe, thank you so much. Thank you so much for like making our dinner every night. She doesn't like, who enjoys cooking? Not many people. I don't think so. Like cleaning up the dishes, like half the battle. But she does these things routinely. And why can't I focus on that? Right? Why am I focusing on like bringing up like really stupid things because I'm in the heat of the moment of conflict, right? And so that was my like resolve, right? The resolution. And then what I decided to do is I need to tell her about it, right? I needed to tell her how I went through this process, right? What I was thinking, and then communicate that with her. Hey, like, dude, isn't this crazy that I
Losing Maddie a little bit here on the connection. You there, Maddie Matt?
Yeah, this thing, it goes back and forth between my office
It's all good.
internet.
But you were saying you went through the stuff in your head on your run, and then you wanted to vocalize it to your wife.
Yeah. So like that's how like the resolution came about. And then from the communication standpoint, I had to just be honest and transparent. Like I felt my mind going this way, but I was like, dude, like actually, how do you make that pivot? And where does that come from? And I like honestly, I want to focus on the appreciation, right? Who likes somebody that's going to be perpetually negative, right? Or find the negatives in people? everyone loves the guy with the abundance mindset that's just joyful and very appreciative of what's, what you've done, or how how you're communicating things. And it all comes down to communication, right? Even so, what I'm trying to get at is there's a conflict resolution mechanism, right? Or a beauty in the conflict resolution when you can physically get to a state, right? Some people call it the flow state. I feel like I was in my flow state. We've talked about that before, but like utilizing something to get through that conflict resolution. All right, why am I pissed? What's the resolution to it? The resolution is really for me to be more appreciative. Whether I believe it or not, we can agree to disagree. So like at the end of the day, we actually listened to another podcast on the way home, and it was an Ed Milet podcast, and it was specifically talking about like how sleep is so important because this woman actually suffered from a brain tumor. And she said, like, sleep is part of that because sleep allows you to obviously decompress. It just flushes out the body while you get in that REM state. And then ultimately, that like when your body is replenished, it wakes up with less stress, right? Typically, you're not going to be added, like it's removing stress out of your body when you have replenished sleep. If you only get 4 to 6 hours of sleep, you're not replenishing your body enough and letting it flush out enough to get you to the actually a proper state to just a replenished state, I guess you could call it.
And there's hormones involved with that too. We've talked about that a little bit here too, is that when you wake up, your cortisol levels are at a certain height. And I follow a guy, Ben Azadi, who everyone should follow. He's like scientific food type of dude. And he talks about drinking caffeine like an hour and a half after you wake up, because your hormones are at such a high level when you first wake up that the caffeine can't get in your system. And so it almost is rendered useless. So there's science behind this stuff, that if you don't recharge your battery sleeping, those get more and more and more and more out of whack.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, like I know the reason why I was even able to cognitively capture, right, where my mental state was going is because I had enough sleep the night before. 100%. There's no doubt about that. If I had lacked sleep, right, I wouldn't have been cognitively aware of like where my mind was going, because I think like that's where you just let it go, right, into a place of comfort of like, woe is me. But instead I'm like, man, how can I get into the mind of gratitude? And I truly believe it's because of my sleep patterns, right? And then my level of discipline when I get up in the morning and what I do and how I follow through with stuff. So, and that's not always the case. I'm not always getting like 8 hours of sleep, but at the end of the day, like sleep is important. That was the conflict. How do I resolve that though? Right. Agree to disagree with somebody that might not agree with me at that moment.
Right.
But like, I'm not going to, don't get me wrong. It's my wife. So like, I'm obviously going to come to terms, but I think there's a level of gratitude. John Maxwell was talking about it even this week. They have a month of Maxwell. He was showing gratitude for his dad, right? When you can show like the gratefulness in others, the appreciation of others, right? The appreciation of self and the appreciation of others. And that's part of the communication process, is that you never want to hold that in. And so when I went through this conflict resolution exercise with myself, through the form of exercise, right, to gain clarity, I then was able to come, okay, how do I now communicate with her? And then I was just transparent. Like, I'm like, look, this is where I was at. This is kind of where I was thinking. I'm sorry actually for the way, I wore it on my sleeve, right? I was just out there. I wasn't really willing to hear her out because it's just something I truly believe in. I'm super passionate about. But at the end of the day, I need to be able to hear her out. But then how do I communicate that? But actually, this is how I came to a resolution, and I'm going to communicate it with you. And I just showed my level of just being very appreciative. So that's pretty much, that's what I got, man, for today is like
I love
between conflict and communication. I know that check out John Gordon's podcast with actually Doc Rivers. It was a phenomenal podcast that I actually learned a lot from that. And that's really, that's kind of the exercises I go through, right? I try to adapt. I try to grab hold of different minds of how I can really really kind of cerebrally walk through things, right? Cognitively be aware of where my mindset's at and whether I need to pivot to the left or the right or wherever I need to go.
Well,
But
and
that's just
sometimes you have to come back to stuff too. I thought that was important. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, you might feel really strongly about something and it doesn't come out the right way, or you say the wrong thing. You come back but after reassessing the data, you're able to look at certain things a different way from different angles, and you're able to kind of explain maybe why you went so far, because here's some things that kind of support this, but maybe I was wrong in these areas. I have to do it too, man. I mean, that's just part of the game.
This is not just though. This is with teams too. So like obviously with my team, I'm not always right, and there's going to be conflict along the way. But what's the conflict resolution mechanism? Sometimes it is going for a run to gain clarity on that, and then coming back. So I've definitely done that with my project managers, where I have to go to them and be like, hey man, I was wrong in this situation. I should have gained a little bit more clarity. And this is kind of where we need to set it as far as where the vision is going for the company. So it's not just, my main focus obviously is my home front first. I always say that, my home front first, and then business really second and third. So what am I doing, right? And how am I putting these things in place at the home front? Because I know I can just easily adapt them into my business and my professional life. So it was just cool to be cognitively aware of that. And I obviously like being transparent and bringing to the forefront some of the things that I might be struggling with, and how I'm like creating those, pathways to really make better decisions. So
I mean, I run into that at home with my wife too, where, you know what I mean? It's like, we lived in California for a long time and now we live in Texas. And so she doesn't see her family as much as maybe she'd like to. But, I feel like as far as long-term business growth, I want to grow my business in an area that's got large metropolitan populations, and that is more, in my opinion, a better business climate. And I think that if we compare Texas to Missouri, it's a no-brainer that Texas is better for business. That doesn't mean that I hate St. Louis, or that I hate home, or that I don't want to see grandma or grandpa. It's that I'm focused on the growth of this business. I'm passionate about it. I'm convinced that this is the best. And then sometimes I don't explain it as, well, there's a 0% tax here compared to a 7% tax in Missouri. If I'm making $100K to $110K a year, well, that's automatically over the course of 10 years, a lot of money back in my pocket, just off that one factor. Instead of basing it on emotion and this is what I want and you're wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong, or this or that, we got to break down the actual data here and look at what these things that are going to develop long-term, how they add and how they subtract, and what are the pros and cons, instead of just saying this is better and this is what we're doing, which I do sometimes. So it happens to me too. This isn't just a one guy and his relationship thing. This happens to everybody. It could happen with any type of thing too. With what's going on with COVID, I've seen countless friends' wives who have gone and gotten online training or something and gotten new jobs, or got trained in this and launched a new business. I'm seeing tons of people use this as an opportunity to pivot and change the trajectory of their future by making new moves. That comes from a conflict. We're struggling in this department, and this department. What am I going to do to communicate that and then find a solution for it? So we're seeing this all across the board, especially on my feed. I see lots of people taking action in their relationship or in their business or in their workplace to make changes moving forward, because the world is changing.
Yeah.
So we have to adapt, like you said, and I'll agree with you in my relationship as a husband. My wife's not the same gal she was 10 years ago. And I'm not the same dude I was 10 years ago. So we can't communicate on that level. The conflict happens because we're moving forward. We're doing better. We're doing bigger things. We're doing more. We've got kids now. So there's going to be new conflicts because we're not at the same place. We're not just sitting at the beach on a Sunday having some cocktails. Life changed. The stakes are higher too. Let's be honest. There's a lot more on the line now. So those conflicts are going to happen. And in fact, I would encourage people to understand that that's not really a bad thing. It's probably a sign that you're moving into some great things ahead. You just got to figure out the communication that comes with that conflict. That can be challenging. So, but yeah, man, I love it. It's a good topic because we bonked on that last week too, a little bit with the whole thing. And so, but it's part of the game. And so I had to come back to that conversation with some better information instead of just, my WWE slugfest approach. So I get it. I totally get it. So, and I applaud the transparency too. I thought her post the other day was extremely well done and transparent. And that's how you grow, is saying, hey, maybe we fiddle-diddled in this one area, but our relationship's more important than letting something like this, control our emotions or make us spiral out of control long-term. So I think it's a beautiful thing. So ladies and gentlemen, it's a cruel world out there. Life can be hard, but conflicts happen. How you communicate your way through it and find solutions is important. And we look forward to seeing everybody soon. We'll be launching the private group soon. So if this is stuff that you guys enjoyed talking about, or you need a shoulder to lean on, trust me, you got 4 of them here with us, 4 shoulders here, because we deal with the stuff too. Running a business is challenging. Being a wife with kids is challenging. Being a husband, doing around whatever you got to do, or a wife that works and takes care of the kids and cooks dinner. And I mean, good Lord, women out there working their butts off. I know people working 4 jobs. My neighbor Derek works 4 jobs, and his wife works for Geico. And I mean, dude, people got to do what they got to do to survive these days. So we applaud everybody out there getting the job done any way you can. So just throwing that in there, man. We get it, and we support you. So, Matt, anything else, brother?
No, man. That's pretty much it. I just want to encourage, I'm going to drop some just obviously, action items. I like, obviously with the ability of action. I think one thing that was instrumental in my learning and my process of education, I invest a ton of time in education every week. And I actually prepare for these podcasts through the process of getting into like minds, right? Higher level minds, higher thinking. So that's how I actually come up with a lot of the content that I produce on it. But I mean, what is the action to it, right? Well, it's conflict resolution exercises. So number one, when you're identifying a piece and you're in the process of just conflict overall, never let it go passive, never let it turn into bitterness. You want to meet the conflict head on. So always meet the conflict head on. And then always come up with a solution to it, right? So there's an approach. You can either get bitter or you can get better, right? And so how do you get better from it? Well, you can automatically formulate and cognitively show a level of appreciation for the opposite position, right? For the opposing side. And then kind of see where that comes out, right? What is the solution to that? So I'll have a solution-based mindset. And that's more so the activity, right? So you're going to identify it. You got to identify the conflict when it arises. Some people think, oh, it's not conflict to me. Like, come on, let's just be honest with yourself. Right. When you go with conflict, just appreciate that it is conflict, because conflict creates growth, right? When you can do that, you can learn from it, right? So then realize it's conflict, meet it head on, don't get bitter over it, and then come up with a solution. What is the solution? And usually there's only one or two ways you can go, right? You can either take that person and don't feel bad if it's a person that shouldn't be in your life anyway, because if it's a person that isn't empowering and enriching your life, they don't have the abundance mindset. So, I mean, that's kind of why I wanted to tell you about even the way my mindset went with my buddy. I'm like, no, that's the abundance mindset. I want to be extremely joyful for him so we can rise each other up together. Because when I get a win, I want him to be the same way for me, be super excited about it. So, just those two things: meet conflict head on, and then communicate. Right? What is the solution to it? Let's come up with a solution. And it might be parting ways. You never know. I mean, it might be a really, really difficult decision, but it's those are the two things that I've learned and kind of progressed from, and how I deal with conflict resolution, and then communication. So, guys, that's it. That's all we got at Reap the Harvest. We out.
Appreciate you all. Have a great one.